It was a gray, rainy afternoon when Daniel pushed through the revolving doors of the city hospital, his small son clinging tightly to his hand. The boy, Ethan, was only 6 years old but carried a quiet maturity that came from seeing his father struggle through life's hardships. Daniel's clothes were worn, his shoes scuffed, and his face etched with the fatigue of someone who had been fighting an uphill battle for far too long. He had been out of work for months, picking up odd jobs here and there, but never enough to truly get ahead. That morning, Ethan had woken up with a high fever and a persistent cough. Daniel didn't have health insurance and barely had enough for groceries, but seeing his son so pale and weak made the decision for him. He had to take him to the hospital. Nothing was more important than his boy. As they stepped into the bright, sterile lobby, Ethan's eyes wandered around the busy scene, doctors rushing by, nurses giving instructions, patients waiting with anxious faces. Then, suddenly, Ethan froze mid-step, his little hand tugging at Daniel's. "Daddy, that's Mommy," he whispered, pointing across the lobby. Daniel frowned, following his son's gaze. At the far end of the reception area, a woman in a tailored navy suit stood with a group of executives, her hair neatly tied back, her posture confident and commanding. She was speaking to the hospital director, smiling politely but with the kind of poise that made people stop and listen. Everything about her, her appearance, her presence, spoke of wealth and authority. Daniel's heart skipped. "Ethan," he said softly, "that's not Mommy. She's gone, remember?" He knelt down so they were eye to eye. "We've talked about this." But Ethan shook his head. "No, Daddy, that's her. I know it." Daniel gave a small, pained smile, ruffling his son's hair before gently leading him toward the pediatric ward. He told himself Ethan was just confused, maybe the fever was making him say strange things. But as they walked past the reception desk, the woman's eyes lifted and locked on Daniel's for a moment. She seemed to pause, her smile faltering ever so slightly. Daniel looked away quickly. People like her didn't belong in his world, successful, wealthy, powerful. He had no business even imagining a connection. Inside the pediatric room, Ethan was examined by a young doctor who confirmed it was a viral infection, nothing too serious but rest and fluids were essential. Daniel felt some of the tension leave his shoulders. They were about to leave when a knock came at the door. Standing there was the same woman from the lobby. Up close, her elegance was even more striking, but what startled Daniel most was the way her eyes softened when they landed on Ethan. "Hello," she said gently. "I hope I'm not interrupting." Daniel straightened, unsure how to respond. Can I help you?" She stepped closer, her voice quiet. "Your son, he pointed at me earlier. Said I was his mother." Daniel gave a nervous laugh. "He's just a kid, he's mistaken." But the woman tilted her head, as though studying Ethan's face. "He has the same eyes," she murmured, almost to herself. Daniel felt his chest tighten. "Look, I don't know what this is about, but..." Before he could finish, Ethan spoke up. "I remember you. You had a blue scarf. You sang to me." Daniel froze. The details Ethan spoke of were from when his mother was still alive, before the accident, before everything changed. But this woman, how could Ethan be connecting those memories to her? The woman blinked rapidly, as if struggling to compose herself. That's impossible," she whispered. Then she took a deep breath. "My name is Alexandra Hayes. I'm the CEO of Hayes Medical Group. I'm here for a board meeting, but when I saw your son, I just felt..." She trailed off, clearly shaken. Daniel didn't know what to make of it. Alexandra was a millionaire business leader, featured in magazines, someone who probably had chauffeurs and private jets. He was a man living paycheck to paycheck, scraping to keep the lights on. Their worlds didn't intersect, yet here she was, looking at his son like he was the most important thing in the room. "I'm sorry," Daniel said finally, trying to end the awkwardness. "We should get going." But as they turned to leave, Alexandra spoke again, her voice trembling. "Wait, please, just hear me out." Something in her tone made Daniel stop. She explained that years ago, before her rise to corporate power, she had given birth to a baby boy. But circumstances, family pressure, a career path that seemed unchangeable, had forced her to make the hardest decision of her life. She had given him up for adoption, trusting he would have a better future. Her voice cracked as she added, "I never stopped thinking about him. I never stopped wondering if I'd made a mistake." Daniel's mind reeled. Could it be possible? Could Ethan? He shook his head. "Ma'am, I adopted Ethan after my wife passed away. I don't know his biological family, just that his mother, she couldn't keep him." Alexandra's eyes filled with tears. Please, I'm not saying anything should change. I'd like to know him. Even if it's from afar. Daniel looked at Ethan, who was watching them both with innocent curiosity. He thought about the nights he had prayed for someone to help him give Ethan a better life, the opportunities he wished he could offer but couldn't. Maybe this woman, this stranger, wasn't here by chance. Over the next weeks, Alexandra began visiting, sometimes bringing books, sometimes just sitting and talking with Ethan. She never crossed Daniel's boundaries, never tried to take over as a parent, but her affection was genuine. Daniel, at first guarded, began to see that she wasn't just a high-powered executive, she was a woman haunted by loss, trying to make amends in the only way she could. Eventually, she offered to cover Ethan's education expenses. It's not charity, she told Daniel. It's a gift for him. Daniel hesitated, pride warring with gratitude. But when he saw the way Ethan lit up as Alexandra spoke about science, books, and dreams of traveling the world, he realized that sometimes accepting help was an act of love. Years later, when Ethan graduated with honors, both Daniel and Alexandra stood in the front row, side by side, cheering louder than anyone. No one in that auditorium knew the full story, how a chance meeting in a hospital lobby had brought together a struggling father, his bright-eyed son, and a woman who had thought she'd lost everything that mattered. What began as a strange, almost unbelievable coincidence became a bond that reshaped all their lives. Alexandra never replaced Daniel, and Daniel never tried to erase her past. Instead, they shared a quiet understanding. Family isn't always about blood or circumstance, it's about the people who choose to show up, stay, and love without conditions. And for Ethan, it meant growing up knowing he had not one, but two people in his corner, both ready to fight for his happiness, both proof that sometimes life's most beautiful connections come from the most unexpected places. Through rain or sunshine, through the struggles and the triumphs, they carried that truth with them. Sometimes the people you meet by chance are the ones you were meant to find all along.